talk a little bit about sort of the breadth of the team that thinks about that?
I'd love to. Hello all. You know Isabel and Darren. They're the co-creators of Shakeology and the inspiration behind our nutrition program. What you may not know is we have a team of experts with hundreds of years of combined experience and training in the areas of nutrition, dietetics, food science, muscle metabolism. We also have a quality assurance team trained in food safety, microbiology, easy for me to say, and we even have a PhD toxicologist on staff. So we've really got a robust team that stands behind our products, and I want to take you through a bit more of that.
And beyond that, we also have a scientific advisory board that we leverage.
Yeah, so we're in constant communication with our scientific advisory board. These are our advisors that are really on the leading edge in their fields. Dr. Marcus Elliott on performance science and medicine. If you ever get a chance, you can type him in Google with Sports Illustrated. There's a fantastic article on him that's a couple of years old. Dr. Francis.
We're going to switch your mics because
Mike has to switch his mic. Dr. Francis Stevens, who's performance nutrition at the University of Exeter. And you may have seen some of the studies that we've already done on our performance line, clinical studies. He's the one that's behind it with his team. And then we've got Dr. Heather Leidy, who is one of the world-leading experts on appetite control and weight management. And then finally, Dr. Mansoor Samapur, who's our advisor and helped put together our food safety program, and he's a world leader in that space as well. We also collaborate with dozens of other folks outside of our scientific advisory board as well.
Yeah, I have to say for me, a couple times a year our scientific advisory board, I think they're coming in April, and we spend 2 full days going through sort of the current, what is current in science and nutritional science, and that's so powerful. Last month we had a field of scientists from top programs and universities around talking about digestive health, and really just powerful work that goes on behind the scenes, and I love those meetings. I only understand about half of it, but I do love it. But Mike, as we talked about sort of how does a nutritional product get to becoming something that becomes part of our portfolio, can you talk a little bit about our sort of philosophy and approach of how that happens?
Yeah, I'd love to. You know, when we look at our nutritional philosophy and approach, it can really be broken down into 3 core buckets: innovation, formulation, and then validation. And we'll walk you through those steps.
All right, well, let's start with innovation. And Allison, this is really where your team, the brand leadership marketing team, comes in. And why don't you talk about what that innovation process is?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm going to walk you through 6 sources of nutritional innovation. And it's basically the process of bringing a new nutritional product to market. And what you'll see is one of our most important sources of innovation is actually coaches. We really want to delve into what coaches want. We want to create products that coaches love. So the first source of innovation, Mike talked about already, but it's the Scientific Advisory Board. So they regularly recommend ingredients to us, and they also keep us apprised of the latest scientific studies around nutrition. The second source of innovation is the latest nutritional research. And again, this is kind of the domain of R&D and scientific affairs. They read the latest journals on nutrition, and they also go to industry events. So you may not know this, but there's conferences just around ingredients. So the latest ingredients from around the world, whether it's phytonutrients or antioxidants or adaptogens, you can learn about those ingredients, and those companies are running clinical studies on those ingredients and determining the efficacy. And as we're always innovating our products and looking for new products, it's great to keep abreast of those innovations. The third source of innovation is the coaches. And one of our favorite ways to delve into what coaches are thinking is Facebook. So coaches actively participate in a variety of Facebook pages, whether it's the Roundtable or any of the coach fitness groups, like for Lift 4 or 80-Day Obsession. Those groups have 50,000 coaches in them, and they're talking about nutrition. And we are listening and going in and looking at not only what you're saying about our current products, but what you're saying about new innovations that we maybe don't have yet. So the next step would be market research. So let's say, for example, when we thought about going into the snack bar market, we'd heard from coaches that this was hot, it was a need, and so the first step was we did competitive analysis. So we looked at all the different brands in the market and how they were positioned and what were the ingredients and what were the key claims, because we wanted to create something with a point of differentiation. The second step with market research is to acquire industry reports. So you can actually buy a report on the snack bar market, and it tells you how big it is. It's $7 billion. And is it growing? Which it is. And then it gives you little tidbits about trends. So for example, we learned that cereal bars and weight loss bars were out, and nutritional snack bars were in. So once we had that information, we moved to the fifth step, which is called concept testing. And a concept is basically just a short description or story of a new product idea. So it talks about the ingredients and the features and benefits and the price. And you may be familiar with a concept because we test concepts among our coaches. We deploy concept tests via email, and you guys respond whether you find the concept believable, likable, and would you buy it? And so we get all that information in, and if we get a concept that's a clear win that we know coaches are really excited about, then it goes to R&D, and they create the formula. And this is where it gets really fun, because they don't just create one iteration, they'll create multiple formulas. So it could be different flavors of Beach Bar, it could be with and without nuts, it could be cranberries instead of cherries, different levels of sweetness. And then we do taste testing, and there's 3 different ways that we taste test. The first is employee testing, so we'll get 100 employees and they'll try the product. The second is at events like this, sometimes we'll bring prototypes and have coaches test and follow up with a survey. And the third and most formal is called the IHUT, the in-home use test. And that's where we would send out a shipment of 100 prototypes to coaches along with a concept and have them answer a survey. And this survey actually revolves around what we call organoleptics. And organoleptics is basically your sensory experience with the nutritional product. So how does it smell? How does it taste? Do you like the consistency? Is the sweetness right? And once we get all those variables back, then we can hone the product and create a final finished good and go to market.
That's a lot of stuff. I should give her a raise. Okay, but that's awesome, and there is, so you can see, there's a lot of work just to get it to say, this is what we want to build. And then, in order to build that, that's where Dr. Erin and her team come in on the formulation side. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you guys do?
Sure. So I think a great example we can talk about on the formulation side is Energize, Beachbody Performance Energize. It's a product we all know and love. I'm personally addicted to it. And when I really am. When we set out to create Energize, it's a pre-workout, so we had key things in mind that we wanted this product to achieve. We obviously wanted it to give you energy for your workout, but we also wanted to choose ingredients that allowed you to push harder in your workout, so that every time you made that commitment to do a workout, you could get as much out of it as possible. So there was a lot of research and discussions that went into this, and we focused in on 3 key functional ingredients, and those are beta-alanine, caffeine, and quercetin. The beta-alanine is important because, without getting too sciencey, it's a building block for a molecule called carnosine that you have in your muscles, and carnosine helps buffer acid buildup. So when you're working out, you're accumulating acid in your muscles, and supplementing with beta-alanine has been shown to increase carnosine levels, so you have more of that buffer, and that actually allows you to prolong how long your muscles can buffer that acid. So beta-alanine is really important. The second ingredient, caffeine, I think we all know caffeine gives you a nice boost of energy, but there's a lot of studies in exercise performance around caffeine, and somewhat of a lower dose, 100 to 200 milligrams, improving focus and also delaying muscle fatigue. So it was kind of cool to have beta-alanine and caffeine attacking that issue of fatigue, but from 2 different mechanisms. And then lastly, quercetin, we were really looking for a third ingredient to round out this formula, and this is where our scientific advisory board members really came in and said, you know, we've got this great ingredient called quercetin that we've been using a lot with our elite athletes, and they're giving us really positive feedback. We found out quercetin's a naturally occurring phytonutrient from plants. It has a lot of antioxidant properties, and it's from things like, it's in all kinds of plants, but kale, onions, apples. And it's what gives Energize that bright yellow color. So when you're like, what's this yellow stuff at the bottom of my Energize cup? That's the quercetin. So it really rounded out the products nicely and gave us 3 really functional ingredients that give you energy and allow you to push harder during your work.
Can I ask you a little bit, just as an example, Energize? How long does that sort of formulation process, the kind of this is working with this isn't working with this, how long does that process take?
You know, I'll let Mike answer that question.
It actually takes, in some cases, 6 months just to figure out what you want to do, because you have to go through the journals, you talk to the experts, you want to make sure we're on the leading edge. What we don't want to do is launch something that's based on superficial information, so we really go in depth to really understand it. And one other thing it's just worth pointing out on Energize is, you look at a lot of the products out there like this, they'll have artificial flavors, artificial colors, artificial sweeteners. We don't use any of that in our Energize product. The color that you're getting out of it's actually coming out of the quercetin. That's the bright yellow that you see. The caffeine source is actually naturally extracted from green coffee and green tea. So what we want to do is really have a very wholesome, holistic product that delivers on performance.
To that point, even on Shakeology, probably many of you don't remember, but before we had the vanilla flavor of Shakeology, that was our most requested flavor, and it took us so long to introduce because the reality is that we couldn't get a flavor profile that fit our standards. It didn't include our synthetic and artificial flavoring, and make it work with, in the right way. So rather than compromise on our standards and introduce something else, we actually took the time. Darren was a critical guy in that process to help us find the right vanilla prototype that fit into, that allowed us to actually launch vanilla Shakeology. And I think you'll find that a lot with our formulas, that we want to make sure that it works, and we want to make sure that the integrity of the product meets our standards. And speaking of integrity of products, really that third phase that you mentioned was the validation phase. So we have these complex products with complex ingredients. How do we make sure that we can get it all the way through the supply chain, from where they're sourcing the raw ingredients to making sure that those same raw ingredients come out of the package with the potency and efficacy that we want it to have?
Okay, I'm going to spend the next 3 hours taking you through. I promise I won't do that. No, but this is actually something I get very excited about, because I think it's something that we put into a product that you don't see with a lot of other products out there. And I'll use Shakeology as an example. We've got over 70 ingredients in it. We source these ingredients from around the world. And I think the core question is, how do we ensure the integrity and the safety and the quality of those ingredients? And that is what I would call our quality assurance journey, going from the ingredient right to the finished bag. And we start off with ingredient selection. So, in the case of Shakeology, there's not an ingredient that we put in there without working with Isabel and making sure that it's the right ingredient for the philosophy of this product. But, we check for nutrition. We actually test if it's a product like we use probiotics in Shakeology. And so we just don't put probiotics in there and call it a day. We actually put it in there at the level we want to make sure that it's at in the finished product at the end of shelf life. So we actually do shelf life testing to make sure that the probiotics, which are the healthy bacteria that we put into Shakeology, are actually there at the end of shelf life. So you're guaranteed it. But we also do sensory testing with it. We do the potency testing behind it. So that's just on selecting the ingredient. Then we go to selecting the supplier for it. And we start with sending a very intensive questionnaire to our suppliers, asking them about their quality systems, how they process the ingredient. Because if they're putting a heat process in that may be destructive to the actives in the ingredient that we want, we're not going to use that supplier. So we can filter out suppliers early on. We next go to what we call an audit, and we actually have trained auditors on staff. These guys will go to every country that you see there they've been to, and they'll go and inspect the factory. It's a 2-day intensive audit. They climb around the equipment in their factories. Everywhere that ingredient touches in their factory, they're inspecting that with blue lights, and just checking the integrity of it, checking everything from their roofs to make sure the roofs have good integrity behind it. And so they go through a documentation review, and they also interview their quality people and their operations people. It's a very intensive program. And the one thing I can say is less than half the suppliers that we talk to never make it through that third stage. So these are suppliers that are supplying ingredients for other products out there that we know of, but they're not good enough for our products and for Beachbody. We next go and do a formal specification alignment and sign off with the supplier to make sure they can consistently meet our specifications. And this is stage two. We hear from our suppliers that we've got the most intensive and toughest specifications for them to meet, which is something actually we're very proud of. We require that every supplier, before they send us an ingredient, test it themselves against our specifications, and then send us what we call a certificate of analysis. It's a formal document. We review that document to make sure that it's actually meeting our specifications. And then if it does, we have it sent to our ingredient warehouse. So that lot will arrive at our ingredient warehouse. We'll take 60 samples from every lot that's received at our warehouse. That gives us a great statistical representation. Some guys might not even test it at that point. Some companies will take one sample, but you could have a truckload of product come in. That doesn't tell you much. You have to get a good statistical representation. So we'll do that. We'll test it for integrity. We'll look at microbiology. We'll look at doing an analytical assessment to make sure that the actives are there at the levels that we want them there. From there, it'll go to one of our manufacturing sites. And at the manufacturing site, they'll do another testing. They'll do a quick screening just to make sure that it's the ingredient it's supposed to be. So they'll check the ingredient for an identity marker. And they'll also do a quick micro check. That's all before we start to blend it. Once we blend it, we pack it. We actually test. We'll take 300 samples from every lot of Shakeology that's produced, 300, and composite that, because we want a fantastic statistical representation. We want to make sure that we don't have one bag that's not representative from that testing sample. And we'll do microbiological testing, we do nutritional testing, and we test for the purity. We also do sensory testing on it because you want it to taste the same consistently. So if it doesn't pass all that, it doesn't go to our warehouse and it doesn't get to you. I mean, it's our promise to you. You trust us to make sure that we're providing the best and safest product that you can get, and we want to make sure we live up to that trust. Overall, before a bag of Shakeology gets to you and you pull out a scoop, that scoop has undergone roughly 1,700 tests before it gets to you.
Yeah, that's so impressive, and just this process. Some of you, if you're a big Focused Energy Boost fan, you may know that we are out of stock on that. We're on a backorder situation. The reason is because one of the ingredients in it failed in this process, and we could have very easily gone out and found a substitute ingredient, put it in there and kept manufacturing, but those substitute ingredients wouldn't have gone through the rigor, and we just won't compromise the process to do that. But Mike, I want to jump back to the slide that you had put up on Shakeology here. Can you bring that up with all the countries around the world? And the one thing you didn't point out was there's a little asterisk and some fine print. And the fine print says ingredient sourcing is subject to change. That's actually something that we're quite proud of because none of our products are static products. Isabel, Darren, the R&D team, we are constantly looking at our existing products and comparing it to the current science, the current ingredients that are available, and we are not afraid to continue to evolve our products to make them better and more effective for our customers.
That's an excellent point, Mike.
So, and just rounding it out, you talked about the sort of validation process, but Aaron, there's actually another side to that as well.
Yeah, so another really important part of the validation process to us is the clinical study side that we do on a lot of our products. So you guys may have seen some of the Shakeology posters or the Energize or Recover posters at Summit. But this is a really important piece for us that we do to not only show that the product works, but that it's really going to deliver those results. The claims that we have on the front of the bag are really what you're going to end up getting. So we have a really awesome resource we just launched. It's beachbodyscience.com. And this is where we'll be rolling out all of the clinical results that we have. So far, we just have a few of these infographics and videos up there, but there's lots more to come. And Allison's team is also really critical in helping us translate all the sciencey stuff into consumer-friendly
It's something that I could understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something you'd want to use.
Okay, awesome. Well, guys, I just want to thank the three of you, Allison, Michael, Aaron. I hope you guys enjoyed